Hey Last Looks crew. Now, did you ever dream of your work gracing the cover of Vogue magazine? Well, the hairstylist we have on the show today did his first Vogue cover back in 1972. Since then, his work has been seen on a crazy amount of covers and editorials in multiple publications. His name is Kerry Warn, and a man that I think is the bee's knees. I was lucky enough to work for Kerry back in 2016 on Blade Runner 2049. He not only is an incredible hairstylist, he tells the best stories and has a wicked sense of humour. Kerry has worked with some of the biggest names in the business and some pretty incredible directors, including Stanley Kubrick. So buckle up and listen to this rerun episode with hairstylist Kerry Warn. Okay, so we had our bald cap prep for hair Last Looks workshop this week just gone, and what a wicked class. Hairstylist Cassie Russick came on board to teach an important workshop and something that is not taught or understood enough. And it was so much fun. I knew Cassie was the person for this job. She has prepped hair to go under bald caps an insane amount of times, and through that experience, she has refined and perfected her techniques. And our amazing Last Looks workshop students did fantastic work. And now they have been armed with a load of knowledge so they can keep practicing and perfecting it themselves. Exciting stuff. Hoping to be able to offer this workshop again in person, and if not, maybe a virtual version for everyone interested from around the globe. Now, my name is Jamie Lee, and this is the Last Looks podcast, a show where we catch up with makeup artists and hairstylists working in the film and television industries around the world. And today, on this rerun episode, we are joined by hairstylist Kerry Warn. On with the show.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
Are you tired of showing up to set with dry, cracked hands? Well, now your well-moisturized mitts will be the talk of the town, thanks to Hands Down Sanitizer, the best in the biz, hands down. Other products are loaded with fillers. Hands Down is all natural, made with essential oils from Paris and real aloe. So you can say goodbye to the dry and say hello to clean, soft skin. Their organic, non-toxic formula comes in a variety of soothing scents: lavender, coconut, lemongrass, and clove. Your hands will feel great and smell great, guaranteed. Created by Emmy-nominated makeup artist Stephanie Fowler, each bottle is handcrafted just for you. And it's not just good for your skin, it's also good for the planet. Hands Down is refillable, recyclable, and sustainable. Where does one find such a treasured possession? Hands Down is available at most makeup and hair suppliers and online. Hands Down Refresher and Sanitizer. Because when it comes to your skin, you deserve the star treatment.
And now, our feature presentation.
Pictures up.
Last Looks. Rolling.
And action.
Hi Kerry, welcome to the Last Looks podcast.
Hi, Jamie Lee. Thank you for inviting me.
If we just kick off with the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
Really? Did you always want to be a hairstylist?
Since I was probably in my teenage years, not as a child. One of my sisters was a hairdresser, and I had an uncle who was a barber and cousins that were hairdressers. So I was sort of around it. So it wasn't anything really particularly foreign to me as a child.
You had creatives in the family already.
So we were sort of, not that I spent a lot of time with them, but I used to love going to the salon where my sister worked after school on my way home from school, like a little detour, and sort of loved the smell of the perm lotion and nail polish remover and all those chemicals that attracted me. To me, it sounded like, it was like a transformation. It's like magic, They'd go in looking a bit dowdy and come out looking all fluffy and glamorous. To me, they looked like movie stars, but they were just the local ladies, of course. And I think that's what got me into it. I think the transformation is what interested me, the ability to be able to transform someone.
And so with your older sister already having a salon while you were younger, so you knew how to get into it.
I knew how to get into it against my parents' wishes, but we lived in a small country town in Australia, in the southwest, a place called Mount Barker.
Okay.
It was like a town of 2,000 people. I thought there's no point in doing something. If you're going to do hairdressing, you want to work in the city. at least.
Yeah.
So I finally talked my father into letting me try hairdressing against his better judgment, and because he had racehorses, and he used to any of them that were any good he would send to the city. And the gentleman called Jimmy McNamara, who used to train my father's horses in the cities, son-in-law was a hairdresser.
Oh, okay.
So my father put in a word, and then between the two boys at the race course and over a beer, I think they decided that they'd probably maybe give me a chance and see how I went. And that was it, basically. That's how I started.
That's fantastic. So you just skipped the small town salon and went straight to the city. So that was in Perth?
Yes, and I had to do sign a contract to do a 5-year apprenticeship.
It was 5 years? God, mine was only 3.
That was in those days, Steve. That was in the 60s.
I wonder if you guys were doing the same hours, like opening hours in the salon. Did you have late nights and working Saturdays and things?
No, we worked half-day Saturdays. We worked from sort of 8 in the morning till sort of 1 on Saturdays. Obviously closed Sundays, and really no late night trading. And unless it was a sort of like, I think holiday seasons we probably did late nights. Sort of like New Year's Eve or something was a bit later. People getting ready for parties and things, but not really late nights. I don't think it's a heavy as work schedule as what they do have now in salons and things.
Yeah.
But, I used to do sort of 5 days in the salon, like 4 days in the salon, 1 day a week, technical training college. So we're learning all the sort of the structure of skin and hair and things at technical college, and basically shampooing, cleaning up in the salon, really.
Yeah, I think I was kind of doing the same thing. Yeah. But I'm kind of glad it wasn't 5 years. That's a long time.
Well, it actually went quite quick, and still friends with all those guys that I trained with. There were like about 4 of us started in the same year, and we get together when I go home and have a few drinks.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. So starting in the salon, did you always know you didn't want to stay in the salon? No. I thought that'd be my thing. We used to have this saying, if I'm standing behind a chair when I'm 30, kill me. Well, double that. And back then you thought 30 was old, right?
Way too old to be doing hairdressing, and way too old to be sort of standing behind a chair. You want to be sitting in that chair. During my training and things, I think it was about the 3rd year, and I sort of thought I wasn't really very good at hair, and I sort of went through this panic thing. So I thought either I've got to get my act together or get out of it.
Right.
And because the people I was working with around me were doing better than what I was, sort of their work was far superior. And I thought, you know what, I've got to show them I could do something. And suddenly everything I was learning at technical college and in the salon and from the different stylists I was helping during the days and things suddenly all clicked in together. This is how it works. This is how you do it. And it seemed to be like not an overnight revelation, but it seemed to happen within a short amount of time, that all the components slipped together. I thought, right, and I started doing things, and there was the odd magazine, like the newspaper wasn't really a magazine, but sort of like the Sunday papers, which would have a color supplement, and I was asked to do hair for that. So I started doing sort of a few fashion shoots. We had a few models coming into the salon, and I was doing their hair and things for that, and then started getting booked to do the local fashion shows and sort of how they have, they weren't sort of big designer shows, or sort of like more department store shows. Then I got involved in doing some charity things for different charity organizations, and then putting on hair shows. It's kind of started to get involved with sort of like putting on hair shows to raise money for charity and things like this. And so that's when all the creative things all slipped together. So I had all the girls I worked with as my models, because they had to do what I told them to do. They didn't have a choice. Otherwise, they weren't going to be my friends.
And it's your vision instead of somebody else coming in and saying, "Can you please do this for me?" And you're like, "Oh, the same thing again." Oh.
And it was great in that sense. So I had a little bit of work going on, other than just the salon. And I used to go we used to have a lot of ladies of the night come in the salon, and I used to do their hair because they were quite a fun group of girls, so to speak. And
Yeah, this sounds like a great salon. You've got like models coming in, you're doing fashion stuff, you've got ladies of the night coming in. It's great.
One of the madams there, and her name was Dory. She was a fabulous character, and she sort of she had the most beautiful hair pieces I've ever seen to this day. And there was she was bleached platinum blonde, and this was bleached platinum European hair pieces she used to come in with. They're amazing. Yeah. We got into this whole thing, and I was obsessed with I Dream of Jeannie. Mm-hmm. So this has got to think it's the 60s. I used to do all these looks on her because she was loving it, because she was running the show, her show, so to speak. And she, with all these sort of like ponytails and braids and and all these sort of things. So I have this great creative outlet for me. Anyway, one New Year's Eve, I got really carried away and gave her this sort of beehive, I Dream of Jeannie, ponytail, braid, you name it, all on, like the whole 9 yards. Anyway, she'd been to a party and she was in a car accident afterwards, and she went through the windscreen head first.
Oh, no.
Apparently, in days before seat belts and things like this. And at the at A&E, the doctor said to her, well, you should thank your hairdresser. It's all this padding you've got in your hair. He said you could have been wearing a scratch. She cut the scratches from hairpins in her head and picked out all the glass, and it was fine. So there we are. I've saved someone's life with a hairdresser.
Absolutely. That's amazing. But it's so nice to have clients that, that odd client that will just let you go for it and do whatever you want.
Exactly. And she used to encourage her girls to come into if they needed buffing up and things like this. And I used to go around to their places of work, shall we say, after work sometimes, and give them comb outs and things like this. It was a great way of earning some extra cash and saving up to go to London, basically. Because that was my dream, to go to London to work. This was all happening in Perth, by the way.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'll go to Sydney. But after a few years, I thought it was Sydney. It's just going to be like Perth, but a bit bigger,
Just skip it.
I might as well just go to Europe and see what I can learn,
Absolutely.
And I don't know whether you felt the same, but it's like when you feel that you're so far away from the rest of the world that you're not quite up to speed with what's going on in the rest of the world, hair-wise or fashion-wise or whatever.
Like, I did my training and everything in a small town. I think I was lucky enough to have a boss and a trainer who had come from a big city and moved to a small town. So she still had that fashion conscious competition work and all that type of thing in the forefront of her mind. But I was just constantly dreaming of going somewhere else.
Well, yeah, you just want to spread your wings, basically,
Yeah.
And so I sort of saved doing those sort of things, working after work and doing late hours and things like this there. I would saved enough money to be able to get my fare. When I finished my apprenticeship and got all my diploma and things, I went to London. And
did you have any contacts there? Or
no,
you just,
absolutely not. I went there, arrived with one suitcase, and sort of thought, well, I better get a job. And I had a couple of friends that I used to work with that were in Italy working. So we all sort of go to London looking for jobs. And I finished up working in a little salon in Knightsbridge, just opposite Harrods, which was okay, wasn't sort of like, I thought, it's not really what I think London's about. And then I heard that there was this Australian hairdresser working for Elizabeth Arden. They used to have a big salon on Bond Street. I thought, God, if he's Australian, get a job, I can probably get a job there. Thinking, you have this sort of false confidence. Anyway, went in there, did my trial, got the job, and I showed them my portfolio, my little portfolio I'd had from Australia with a few tear sheets from the magazines and sort of quotes from newspapers and stuff like this. And they said, next week we're having a fashion show within the salon. We want you to do all the hair. I said, that's fine. And there was about 6 models, which was fine. And the guest of honors was Princess Margaret. So I'm thinking, okay, this is
exciting.
This is what it's about. We're getting there somewhere. And then from that, that was quite successful. I was asked to do their next ad campaign for Elizabeth Arden to do the hair, and I sort of suddenly I was in like a really serious photographic studio and sort of like with beautiful models and sort of quite different to Perth, so to speak. Yeah. And that led to sort of Actually, I think was literally about 6 months after that. I got a call from British Vogue to do the cover with David Bailey, and which I did.
So that's a pretty incredible jump.
It is, but
That's awesome.
but I thought it was sort of normal at that age. You think you're there and you want to do it, and it's what it's all about. And when you think of there's so many talented hairdressers all over the world, and so many talented people, especially at that time in London as well, which people were looking at for sort of 70s, sort of this is the early 70s. I was quite lucky. Yeah, that was in 1972. I did my first Vogue cover.
Wow. So you must have made an impression pretty quickly in London then.
And then it all sort of like subsided a bit, and you started doing sort of just salon work and bits and pieces. A little bit of editorial came in here and there. And
just to remind you that you're
really not that fabulous. you have to pull your bloody self together and get on with it.
Yeah.
So I thought it was all free sailing from that point. No. Anyway, from that point, so I just decided that I needed to sort of advance my techniques. So after a couple of years, I went to work for Leonard's.
What's Leonard's?
Leonard's was the most fabulous hairdressers in the world, I think. He trained with Fidel Sassoon. They trained together at a place called Avansky's in London. And Leonard went on to do his thing, and Leonard did all the hair for Barry Lyndon. I don't know whether you remember the Stanley Kubrick movie, Barry Lyndon?
Yes.
Anyway, he did that. But he was the most fabulous session hairdresser. He did everybody that was sort of fabulous in London in the 70s, like from Sandra Rose to Bianca Jagger to Marissa Berenson. I mean, the salon was just a bevy of starlets, models, fabulous. It was like, I don't know, I can't imagine, I can't explain. It was a townhouse. It was 4 floors. And the ground floor was a sort of a little shop, sort of the reception and shop. And then the other 3 floors were hairdressing and colouring and hair treatments and things like this. And he had the most fabulous group of hairdressers that absolutely legendary. But his work alone, you should check it out because he's one of the great hairdressers, I think, in the world.
That's amazing. So you must have been like a kid in a candy store.
Well, it was like my eyes were out in sticks, these people and the looks that were coming out, sort of like these amazing sort of like get at someone's hair and turning it into an afro and, you know what I mean? Just doing the most amazing things, like really quite brilliant. And I can't find the words to explain how fabulous and exciting it was, but absolutely made no money whatsoever. But I learned a lot, and I used to go out on sessions with the senior stylists, to assist them. John Frieda worked there. I mean,
fantastic.
And I used to go and be John's assistant sometimes.
Yeah.
And, like a most amazing time, I think. But because I wasn't making any money, I had to sort of be realistic. So I did have rent to pay and I needed to go out and needed to get something to eat. But I was much slimmer in those days. So maybe there's something to say for it. So anyway.
Still be broke.
Exactly. So anyway, I got offered a job back at Arden if I wanted to go. So I thought, well, listen, I've got to go and make some money. I went back. They offered me a very nice salary.
Yeah.
I went back, but I knew I'd made the wrong move the first week I went back because I didn't have the creative energy or the people around me. I think that's the most important thing is the people that are around you to inspire you. I think is one of the most important things, for our work. And I think as soon as that's lacking, it's uphill battle. Yeah,
well, it just becomes a bit monotonous, doesn't it?
It does. And
you want that inspiration, those fabulous people walking through the door. You're like, oh, who's going to come in today? And what are they going to look like when they leave?
But even the people you're working with, sort of
absolutely,
like, to inspire you as well, saying, oh, God, I never thought of doing that, or that's great, or, and not being too guarded to not be able to share their experiences, which I've always sort of carried that with me. Hopefully I still am like that, sort of like I'm not afraid to sort of, I suppose when I was younger I was different. I was a bit more guarded because you didn't want anybody to copy you. But then again, when you realize that it's not about, no one ever does it the same. It's
No.
about learning something and putting your spin on it. And that's what makes us
Absolutely.
individuals, you know? We have to learn the technique and the craft, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just having that security within yourself to just be able to share that knowledge. But I think you're amazing at sharing. Very gracious. There are still a lot of stylists out there that they don't want to show you a thing. They want you to just work it out yourself. And it's like, no, show me. I want to know how you did that. How did you do that?
And then you think, well, that works for them, but it doesn't work for me sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But you want to know how they did it. So, and then you can, do it your own way.
Exactly. So that with going back, then I sort of got a job. A friend of mine was working. She was actually a manicurist I used to work with at Arden. So got a job with Molton Brown.
Oh, okay.
And she said, "Why don't you come and work there? Everyone's really fun, and it's a whole new technique. It's all natural." I'd learned sort of structured hairdressing, sort of like really old school. So practicing my finger waves and pin curls and doing all my stuff at technical college, which we had to do, which remained in good stead until this day. I still sort of, every finger wave, I still think of that teacher and being wrapped across the knuckles because I wasn't doing it right. Thinking, oh God.
I didn't quite have that experience, but I do remember asking, why do we even have to learn this? And she was like, so you can control hair, so you can learn how to mold it. And I was like, oh, gotcha. I'm going to nail this. Let's do it.
Right. Well, mine said to me, you want to be a lady's hairdressing? Do ladies' hair.
Whack.
I think mine was a little tougher.
Yeah,
but anyway,
absolutely,
but I learned.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went for this interview at Molton Brown. I got the job, and it was totally different because in those days their concept was no hairspray, very minimal hair products, no sort of setting lotions, no fixatives, whatever, to use the natural flow of the hair.
Wow.
Which I'd never done. And I thought it was absolutely amazing because it was totally divorced from everything that I'd learned.
Were they still trying to achieve those same styles but without doing that? Or was it the fashion had kind of shifted?
No, the fashion had gone, to much more easier, sort of like in the 70s, it's sort of it was a more of a natural sort of what we call a sort of like probably organic look, so to speak. If you had wavy hair, you'd go with the wave. But we dried the hair using very minimal hair dryers. There were no hood dryers. It was all dried with your hands, with finger drying to give it body and to mold the curls and things like this. And they had this fabulous product called seaweed setting lotion, which actually wasn't a setting lotion at all. It was like an anti-static lotion. But it was all derived from seaweed and different herbs and things. I don't know what the other components were, but you'd put a little bit of that on the hair and it would help so when you're drying it, the static. But it was a great look, and it's great for me to use when you're doing sort of like natural looks on film and things like this. I still use those techniques. They were sort of like to dry the hair and sort of not to use a sort of diffuser or anything, but to dry with your hands. To work with wigs like that is sometimes brilliant as well.
That's awesome. They sound like they were quite kind of ahead of their time. Like,
they had a vegetarian kitchen downstairs in the salon. It was very advanced. It was sort of like the thing to have in London, and it was on South Molton Street, which was like a sort of fancy shopping street near Bond Street. It was sort of it was a really nice environment. It was all sort of like ferns and very green, so to speak. What we call green now.
While you were working there, were you still doing little bits on the side?
Oh, absolutely. Still doing fashion and stuff like this, doing a lot, and started working a lot with British Vogue. And I did, God knows how many covers I've done with British Vogue and editorials and things. But I also started doing TV commercials as well, which sort of was a bit of training for film for me.
Is that commercials for like beauty brands or just general?
For
all sorts of
beauty, hair products, hair color products like L'Oreal, Clairol, things like that. Skincare. I did car commercials, everything. anything to get out of the salon racing and get in the studio. I wasn't greedy. I'd just take everything.
No, well, it's just having that variety. It keeps you interested.
It's just learning it, and it's sort of like but you're constantly learning. And I think that's what's another great thing about our profession is we're constantly learning, You go into a new job and it's absolutely a new group of people, a new concept, it's like rethinking it again. Don't you find?
Absolutely. I love it. I think that's what made me think I can't work in a salon for the rest of my life. I can't walk into the same building and work with the same people every day. I'm just going to flatline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some people are really amazing at it. I'd really admire them. I think there are all different levels of hairdressing.
Yeah.
Absolutely suited to that, and I do it unbelievably, and other people, are in it because they just want to be stars or something like this.
Yeah.
It's all different. I think it's all different levels, but I think what's exciting is the creation of it. Sometimes the maintenance can get laborious, but that's in every job. You know what I mean?
At the same time, knowing how to maintain, that one client that comes in every 4, 5, 6 weeks, and to keep her looking the same
and to keep her happy, exactly,
is great training for going into film and television and stuff.
Oh, well, exactly. Well, and it's also, and to dealing with people, and how to deal with people, and and those are very, very important things you learn very young, which I think is amazing.
I think so, and the art of consultation. So just being able to get their thoughts and to you're on the same page.
Exactly. So from that point on, from doing all that, I decided, well, and I worked a bit in Paris and Italy and things like this, but not massively. I thought, I'm no good at languages, so I better try America. So I've done London. So I sort of packed my bags and go off to live in New York.
Oh, fantastic.
Where I had once again used my editorial contacts, which I'd met a lot of people from doing the Vogue stuff, a lot of photographers and things. One called Albert Watson, who I still work with actually to this day.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
I went there and sort of started working in New York doing editorial. And once again, almost the same thing as I started doing editorial. Then I started doing commercials and doing things like this. And then in about 1980 something, and I'm just trying to think of what year it was. I can't remember offhand, but it's in the 80s. A friend of mine had designed hair and makeup, a guy called Anthony Clavet, who'd done The Cotton Club, the movie. He was working on a movie called Revenge with Tony Scott and Anthony Quinn and Kevin Costner and Madeleine Stowe. And apparently there's some problem with the hairdresser on the show. So I get a call in the middle of the night. I was in Italy working, and he said, "This is this film. I'd really like you to come and help out if you can." And I thought, God, I can't do a movie. I haven't been on a movie set. I didn't on television, but that's, you're there for 2 days, maybe 3, 4 if you're lucky,
Yeah.
But, and I sort of like, God, I can't. He said, listen, you've got 10 minutes to make up your mind, because we've got to find someone. Anyway, I thought, well, the worst thing they could do is they could throw me off the set if I'm useless. That's the worst that could happen. So I thought, go for it. So I did, and it's a movie called Revenge.
And where was that shot?
It's shot in Mexico,
in New York?
actually. No, in Mexico.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow, cool.
In Mexico City, Cuernavaca, and Puerto Vallarta. And we did those.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. And so it was fabulous, and I love Mexico. It was beautiful. And I love the Mexican people, actually. I think they're wonderful. Wonderful people.
Yeah, I love Mexico.
Anyway, so that was my first movies. Then I thought, well, I'll just go back to New York and have a sort of a bit of a normal life, carrying on doing what I did before. Then I got a call from the producers, one of the second AD, a guy called Jim Scotchapole. He was on Mrs. America with us, but he was a line producer on Mrs. America.
Oh, nice.
Anyway, so he called me up because I'd worked with him with a Revenge and said, "Listen, we're doing this movie down in Buenos Aires and said,
wow.
he said, do you want to do it? It's 1920s. And I said, oh, God, I've always wanted to do 1920s. I love the 20s. Oh, my God, like a dream. And I thought, oh, my God, I'm never going to remember how to do a finger wave. I can brush up on my pin curls. I thought, oh, shit, should I do it? I went through this dilemma. Anyway, I did it. And I had this fabulous assistant called Isabel Nattori. And she didn't speak a word of English, but she had the most fabulous test, because I said to the production, I said, I need someone that really knows their stuff here, because one, I don't speak the language. I need someone that can handle doing finger waves, like this. Anyway, so we're in this little office testing. Isabel walks in. She's tiny, smoking, and I explained with an interpreter that I needed to see her do finger waves. She took a drag on a cigarette, put it on the counter, wet the hair, did the whole head, and picked the cigarette up before the ash dropped. I said, yeah, okay, you can do it.
You got the job.
And looked at me like she could have killed me. I thought, she's the girl. She's the girl for me. She's gonna. But we used to have these amazing conversations. Neither of us. She didn't speak English. I didn't speak Spanish, and yet we talked all day. We get told to shut up and get up. But it was like, and I understood every single word, because she was so dramatic. She's so animated that you could get, and she was so protective of me. She was unbelievable, because I had a collection of vintage 20s hair combs that I'd taken for some big ball scene and party scenes we were having. And the movie was called Naked Tango, by the way. And it wasn't porn. No, it had Vincent D'Onofrio.
I didn't even think about that.
And anyway, she'd say to me, she'd sort of like look at me and say, "Be careful, you watch her, because I don't trust her. She'd obviously worked on another movie, and she's probably a bit light-fingered or something like this." I mean, she was brilliant. I mean, lovely, lovely, adorable woman. Adorable. Those things make jobs magic,
Oh, absolutely. Just meeting those characters. She sounds amazing. Did she just continue doing hair?
Well,
did you stay in touch with her?
I think she's passed now. No, I used to, for years, I used to send her little gifts from New York and things like this, and she loved dressing up, and she was just a lovely, lovely lady.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And she said to me, she wanted me to meet her mother, because her mother spoke English.
Oh,
so
nice.
So I went to this big birthday dinner for her, and the mother was there, and the mother could say, "Hello, how are you?" That was her English.
I'm sure you still had a blast.
I did. I had enough wine. I spoke Spanish in the end, I think.
Now, was that the first time on those two jobs that you dealt with the humidity, dealing with the hair and everything, or it wasn't? You were there at a good season and it wasn't too bad?
Well, we're there in quite good seasons. Like Cuernavaca, for instance, is the most beautiful weather. If you've ever have a chance to go there, it's like every day is like a perfect spring day. So it's like clean, dry, no humidity. Mexico City is another story. Puerto Vallarta is a little bit more humid there.
That's by the ocean, isn't it?
Yeah, around the water. It's a bit more humid, but, the great thing with 20s hair, it's not going to drop that much, because it's so scalp-like and like close to the head shaped. Like a little bobs and things weren't going anywhere. The finger waves were nailed in, basically.
Yeah. I think it's always my first thought when someone tells me that a film is on a location. I'm like, what's the weather like there?
Right.
What am I going to be dealing with and battling with?
Yeah, exactly. If you're doing Marie Antoinette, I think it's time to worry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, my Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. So on Revenge, were you the hair designer on that, or were you just helping out?
I was just doing Kevin Costner, Anthony Quinn, and Madeleine Stowe.
Oh, okay, cool.
But I was the hair designer on Naked Tango. My first design job, and it still looks. It still doesn't look too bad when I see it pops up quite late on television sometimes, and it still doesn't look too bad.
I'm going to have to watch it now.
I'm not embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed about it. That's for sure. I don't want to dive under the seat when it comes up.
That's good. It's always a good sign.
It's always a positive.
And then what happened next?
Back to New York, back to normal life, carried on, and thought, never going to do another movie. That's it. Got the 20s out of my system.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like, when I got caught in a bit of a rut in New York, and I'm lucky enough to have lots of jobs and bought a lovely apartment, had a really nice time, have some wonderful friends there. But I still thought, you know what, I need to prove myself one more time. So I thought I'll go back to London, but I'll go back freelance this time, not associated with a salon, and which I did. And then I got approached by John Frieda, who asked me to get involved with the product side of the John Frieda products at that time. And I was a bit apprehensive. I thought, I'd sort of accredited my name to a couple of other hairdressers once in a while, but it wasn't sort of something that I was sort of really particularly happy with. And then I sort of thought, why not? I know John, I know his reputation and things like this, and the products are good. And I thought, well, why not? And which led to sort of like a 20-year contract I had with them. I don't anymore, but it was a great, great, great learning curve for me because I had to go out and sort of not sell the product so much, but for the press, launch products for them, for the press and things like this, which was really good learning curve and sort of speaking to people about the products and learning all the background of them and the technology and things like this, which was a whole other area for me, which I'd never, ever delved into before. And
totally.
But at that time, apparently my name came up a few times when Stanley Kubrick was looking for someone to do hair on Eyes Wide Shut. Mm-hmm. And I was asked to go for a meeting to meet Mr. Kubrick.
That's amazing.
I thought
You're just like, what is happening?
I thought, I'm not doing a movie. I've done my movies.
What?
I said, I'm not. I had to get on a train. I had to get on a train, I think, from King's Cross up to St. Albans, where he lived at the time, and all the way up there. No, I'm not interested. I'm not doing. But I was curious about him. That's where I was going.
Yeah.
And then I think it was probably less than half an hour after meeting him, I was saying, yes, okay. So he's very persuasive, very persuasive. Because I'd sort of talked myself completely out of it, and I was just being curious. But that when we started filming, well, first of all, he said, I will show you a script. You're not allowed to take it out of the office. I had to stand in the hallway, read the script, and give it back to him.
Oh my God, that would have taken me like 2 days. Such a slow reader.
So am I. So I had to sort of scan it quickly and sort of like this. And I said, I'm going to probably need quite a few assistants. He said, I don't want any assistants on set. He said, I want you to do the hair. And I said, Stanley, there's party scenes with 200 people. You're never going to get them on the set by the time I'm finished.
Yeah.
It's going to be 11 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? So anyway, I didn't know anybody in the film industry at that point in London. And I said, the only ones I knew was the guys I was working with John Frieda. So I said to him, do you want to come and help me just do a bit of hair? So I gathered them up, and that experience of a lifetime. They come and they help me out just doing a few blow dries because it had to look pretty contemporary, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So,
but thank goodness he let you have somebody else. Otherwise, he
said to me, this is the only argument. He said, this is the first argument you're going to win. And he said, and the only one. I said, okay. I said, if I can't produce what is necessary, it's meant to be a New York style party, and the people are not going to have their hair done. It's going to look ridiculous, Stanley, because those women are high maintenance, especially sort of those high end parties. It's all about blow dries and they're done.
Yeah, he would have appreciated your honesty, I'm sure.
They're not rocking up in a ponytail and things, you know what I mean? And, but I love Stanley. He was a wonderful, wonderful man and great sense of humour. And we were together for 2 years working on that project. Went over.
How long, sorry?
2 years.
Oh, wow.
It went from, I think, 97 to 98 to 99, I think. We went through those 3 years on it, but over a period of 2 years.
Just kind of off and on. It wasn't consistent.
No, pretty much. We had one summer break.
Oh, my goodness.
They gave the actors a break.
That's fascinating.
And then there was just Robert McCann was doing makeup and I was doing hair. Robert was a wonderful makeup artist. Who's no longer with us. And we became great friends. And I mean, well, there's only two of us. He was doing makeup and I was doing hair. And that was it, basically.
I mean, over that period of time too, you know, all those long hours and days, and
oh my God, he used to wake me up and set as I'd fall asleep snoring, so to speak. Come on. Anyway, but Stanley was a fantastic human and wonderful, wonderful man to be around. And it was sort of like there was only about 26 of us on the whole film. It was like doing a student film, you know. And we sort of wonderful. I think if I'm correct, it came in under budget. I think after all that time because we had so little crew, and sort of was quite amazing experience. And from that point, Tom asked me to do Mission Impossible 2.
Oh wow! So that's completely different to Eyes Wide Shut, isn't it?
Exactly. So we go to Australia with Tom and Tandy Newton, and I was the hair designer on that as well. But doing Tom and Tandy on set.
You found that quite different, like just getting into that action side of things?
What was great was with John Woo, who was wonderful. And it's great to see all that action and sort of do all the... I'd never done anything like that before. It's the first time I'd ever done sort of action movie. So it was...
Having stunt doubles and all that kind
sort of stuff. But talked John into... because there was a thought about Tom should have his hair like Mission Impossible 1, which was short, sort of military cut. And speaking to John Woo, I said, well, don't you think it would heighten the action if the hair was flying around a bit? Because he was growing his hair, hadn't cut it from Eyes Wide Shut, and had grown down a little bit because it was sort of wasn't too short in that. It was sort of like a bit like a blow-dried look, for Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah. And I thought, to ease it up and sort of have it down sort of like... And I thought he looked great, actually. He looked really quite handsome.
Yeah.
And with the hair all spinning and round and things, and all those motorbike shots and things like this.
Very cool.
That was great. That was a great time in Australia. I think we were there for about 6 months shooting. Did a little bit in LA towards the end, but that was a great. It was a good experience. And then back to London to my life, and really, I'm just trying to think what happened next. Oh, that's right. I did Nicole wanted me to do a movie called The Others, which was...
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
Which was filmed in Spain, in Madrid. So we went, we'll pack up and go off to do that.
So was that the first time you'd worked as a personal?
Absolutely. Just the one. I'd obviously worked with Nicole on Eyes Wide Shut, but it's the first time I'd done personal, so to speak. And the director, Alejandro Amenabar, first of all, his idea was to have with lots of red hair, sort of like a little bit 1940s sort of feel to it. And my thought was, do you think, after reading the script, do you think it'll give the game away if we make her look like, too like that? You know what I mean? Because in the end, the reveal is they're all dead, basically.
Yeah.
I said, so we decided to make her look a little bit more like 1930s hair. Mm-hmm. So it's back there, because she was meant to live on the Channel Islands. And I said, well, she wouldn't be sort of cutting edge London look in the 40s. Yeah. She would have been a bit backdated, I thought. And I thought to make her look like she wasn't alive as much is to take the red out of the hair and make it look more somber. And that's what we did, basically. And it went there. And I think it was the correct thing to do. It was one of my favourite hairdos, actually, on Nicole, that look.
I really enjoyed that film. I love that twist at the end. It was just like, what? Oh, didn't see that coming.
Yeah, it was good. He's a brilliant director. Wonderful.
It's so nice to be able to work with a director to kind of just work out those little bits and pieces within the story. Like
the subtlety of it, yes.
Yeah, and just your side of that. I mean, because it all comes into costume and makeup and the set design and all that type of stuff. So it's nice to have that little story of your own within
all that structure. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. And then what you did quite a few films with Nicole, didn't you? So you did
lot.
Cold Mountain. How was that?
It was quite brilliant. I mean, because we were up in the mountains in Romania,
Oh wow, okay.
and it was brilliant. They built all these farms, obviously, because we're in Romania,
Yeah.
and grew all these cornfields. We're there for 6 months from the summer to the winter to get all the winter shots in. It was lovely. I liked the movie. I don't know. Did it get well received? I'm not sure now. I think it did. I mean, I thought they were all great in it. I loved sort of working with Donald Sutherland. I didn't do his hair, but he was on set. He was a great man, and with Jude and Nicole and Renee.
Yeah, I've worked with Donald. He's lovely.
Yeah, and it was a fantastic cast. Brendan Gleeson, and really lovely. And I sort of quite like the hair in that, all that sort of tons of flowing auburn, like strawberry blonde hair.
Yeah, it was pretty. And then it looks like you went, I don't want to go through everything, but I think the transition from Cold Mountain into Stepford Wives, that's quite a whole different situation, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, wow. I mean, that must have been, I imagine, a lot of fun.
I like the blonde hair in Stepford Wives.
Yeah,
when she sort of like the reveal and the blonde, from the short dark hair.
Yeah, well, it's nice to be able to, I don't know, have such a character change within a film.
Well, that's always fun for us to do those sort of things, isn't it? When you sort of like dress someone up. But one of my favourite looks I've ever done on Nicole was a film called Birth. Absolutely beautiful, I think.
Is that the first time anyone had kind of seen her with hair like that?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I thought she looked great. There's a scene where she's at the theatre, and I think it's one of the most beautiful shots I've ever seen of Nicole, I think. She looks absolutely incredible. She's just the eyes flickering and she's sitting very still. It's a beautiful scene.
That's awesome. But for that look, was that written into the script that she would have short brunette hair?
She'd lost her husband.
Right.
She's so she's almost defeminizing herself, you know what I mean? Sort of like, don't look at me, you know what I mean? How you sort of like going through a change. And also with director, I think it's Jonathan. Yes, Jonathan. We decided to take the color, de-glamorize New York. So it was very grey and very cold and very still. She was wearing grey, like grey clothes, grey skirts, little grey silk blouses in the freezing snow with a sort of colourless hair and sort of simple makeup. It was really sort of desaturizing New York, so to speak, which I thought was a nice idea to do. Like, basically, I was using sort of Gene Seberg reference for the hair, Right.
And it's so funny because even though she's going through that and trying not to be, like, trying to downplay how she looks, she still looks beautiful.
Well, she looks, and I think it's the first time you see her without all that hair and without all the glamour things going on, and she still looks extraordinarily beautiful. I think. I tried to talk her into cutting her own hair off, but she wasn't having it.
So when did you start working with wigs? Was that like before getting into film, or did the wigs kind of come along with working in film?
I used to use them on commercials and things like this.
Okay.
Not not at the level of, there were sort of, cheapy ones, that I'd chop up for a little bob or something like this. Or basically started on Naked Tango, really. It was my first big wig moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that the first time you'd had something custom made, or
yes, lace front, yeah, and yes.
And do you remember who you went to for that?
The wig was designed before I was brought on board and was done by Paul Huntley.
Okay.
Paul Huntley in New York, yeah.
So it was all ready to go. You just had to work out how to
make it work. Yeah. Get it on the head and make it look believable.
And then, because I'm always interested in how people learn how to work with wigs, because some people are lucky enough to have worked under someone who can teach them all the ins and outs with wigs, and then others just kind of have to work it out themselves.
Basically, I worked it out myself in a sense,
Yeah. But I feel like you've worked with some pretty amazing quality wigs, so that's always very helpful too, isn't it?
It makes life a lot easier than when you're not. And I love my Peter Owens.
Who doesn't?
I've had some beautiful wigs done by him.
Yeah. Is that who Nicole normally uses, as Peter Owen?
Yeah, we did. We used to, when I worked with her, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Stepford's all Peter Owen. The others, the hours. Yes, pretty much so, yeah.
Nice. I love how certain actors and actresses are really happy to go with wigs to help get that look and that change.
Well, I think, you're saving your own hair as well because it can get so damaged daily maintenance, you know what I mean?
Oh, totally.
With constant use of colouring and dyeing to get to that point of what the character needs to be or what you want it to be, you can quite often sort of put a lot of stress on the hair, and a lot of the groundwork can be done without you being there.
Yeah, you can get a bit of the prep in before before they get into the chair.
It's like I love the Dolly Parton line, who does your hair? Shit, how do I know? I'm never there.
I haven't heard that. That's awesome.
You haven't heard that? Oh, I think it's a genius line.
No, yeah, it is. That's awesome. So with having such a varied career, really, I mean, salon, fashion, film, print, runway, how different do you find fashion is to film, just in your everyday working?
Oh, extremely. I mean, fashion, you're with a crew of probably about 10 or 12 people.
Yeah.
And it's much more involved. Sort of those, you sort of have conversations with the stylist and, the fashion editors, photographer, what lighting and sort of where we're going to go, what the little story is of the shoot and how you're going to make your characters look and things like this. And I think as the years have gone on, they've got much more of a production than when I first started. First of all, you turn up with a hairdryer and a few brushes and some hairspray, and now it's sort of, and now it's almost trunks of wigs. You know what I mean? It's it's a little bit more involved, a little bit more stylized, but that's what they're going through sort of look wise at the moment, which I love actually. I love because who wants to see everyday normal? We can see that in the street. It's nice to see things that are a bit aspirational and a little bit sort of above the norm.
Absolutely. But I'm guessing that having those conversations with the photographer and talking about lighting and all that type of stuff definitely helps when you move into the film world to kind of look around and go, oh, okay, so the lighting's a bit like this. Maybe we need to, adjust this a little bit and still be able to have those kinds of conversations with the people you need to in the film world.
We can see what they're doing to a face, what lighting does to a face. And what light can do to a wig, as we all know. They'd kill it, or kill the person that's doing it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what are you doing? What are they doing? Are they looking at the monitor? Are they seeing what's happening right now?
A nice bit of side light on a lace. It's always attractive. You know what I mean? It's like, help.
Absolutely.
I was at one point, I was working with someone, I won't remain nameless. I was going to make my own scrim and take in, throw a bit of shadow across the forehead.
I know. It's just like you feel like just yelling out, would you help me out a little bit here?
Exactly.
So throughout your career, what do you feel like was the single best bit of advice you were ever given?
Single best bit of advice? That's a tough one. This really tough stylist when I was first doing my apprenticeship, really tough bitch she was. Horrible woman.
There's always one.
She told me I'd make more money on the street corner than doing hairdressing, so get out of her fucking sight. That was a good piece of advice because I thought,
you thought stuff you.
Exactly. I said, I'll show you.
Yeah. I think I had something similar. It wasn't as harsh as I'm finding out that I have a softer story than you. But I remember going in to talk to one of the local hairdressers in my small town, and she was just like, well, do you want to work in the salon? And I was just like, well, yeah, but I want to get into like fashion and film or like something like that. And she just kept going on about, I don't think that's right for you. It's going to be really difficult. And I don't know if you can do that. And I just walked out of there going, yeah, I can.
And I'll pay you. And you hope she's going to, why don't you sort of get all your CV together just a small stack of
Just
DVDs
gently,
and drop them off to her. By the way, you were saying?
like it's a type of advice, but
But it gives you strength.
yeah, exactly.
I've had some great people that have obviously encouraged me on the way, but there's been so many. I mean,
Yeah. Well, what would you tell somebody if you had somebody who wants to either get into fashion or film industry?
do your research, study, look at references, never, always sort of, whether it's not magazines so much, more like books or art books and things like this, and really do your research and things like this. And I find those things fascinating, and I find old movies fascinating because you learn from them. And I think, to me, one of the greatest cinema hairdressers was Sidney Gieleroff. Do you know who he is?
No, maybe I need to do my research.
No. He created all the looks for Hollywood in the 40s. Well, I think from the 30s, 40s and 50s, and it went into the 60s. He sort of like designed Rita Hayworth's hair, Ava Gardner, did all those girls, all those amazing, iconic beauties that we still probably reference to today.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's ever part of the union. I think he worked off set, but he designed all the looks. And then I think it was like someone like Joan Crawford wouldn't do a movie without him designing a hair for her.
Oh, wow.
And just because he inspired sort of fashion of the time, and also, and still like 60, 70 years later, 80 years later, we're still looking at those things and those images when you see the most beautiful waves and the most gorgeous polished hair. And used
stunning.
to work a lot of it obviously was wig work as well, but absolutely amazing stuff.
I wonder if he had something to do with, I noticed recently when I was working on something that was set in the 50s, and we were looking at images of some of those actresses in their earlier days, and noticing that a couple of them, their hairlines changed quite dramatically.
Right.
And I remember the costume designer came back and she was just like, I think they had some type of electrolysis or something done on their hairline to adjust it, like to open their face out, to open their forehead up larger. I wonder if he had kind of something to do with.
Well, I think that's a famous story about Rita Hayworth, wasn't it? They heightened
Rita
her,
that we were looking at,
they heightened forehead because she had sort of a lower forehead, and then they made her hair red. Obviously, she's a brunette.
Yeah. But that kind of change back then is quite fascinating to me. It's just like, wow, that's a real effort to go through. It's not something I think I would think about, is changing someone's hairline.
Exactly, because you're changing the whole structure of the face.
Yeah.
I've lowered hairlines for movies.
Yeah.
When you're creating a character, lowering, having the wig made lower and things like this, so you can sort of change the proportion. But heightening it's a bit more serious, especially electrolysis. But there's a famous movie like the 1930s one called The Women. I don't know whether you've ever seen it. It's a very famous movie, and it's only women in it. There's no men in the movie at all.
Okay.
And it has like Joan Crawford, Norma Shearer, a bunch of Rosalind Russell, a whole bunch of fabulous actresses in it. And they all go to a salon called Sydney's, and they get their hair this gossip, and that's reference to Sidney Gieleroff, a nod to him.
Ah, okay. Wow, that's cool.
But he was the most genius hairdresser that I think his work I've ever seen. And so inspirational. So that's what I'd say to someone. Look at those movies, look at those books, look at those fabulous women that have given us so much, and enjoy it and run with it.
Yeah. Be inspired by it.
Yes, exactly.
I also wanted to ask, what do you find most challenging about our line of work?
Sometimes the hours.
Yeah. I would have to agree with that. Absolutely.
I enjoy meeting new people, working with new people. Sometimes I'm a bit intimidated by them, but you get over that, I guess, in a sense.
I always feel like it's like on a new job, it's like the first day of school.
Exactly.
Like I get those nerves of, there's going to be new people to meet and work with, and like it's exciting, but it's also nerve-wracking. But
I think that's what gives you the energy to do it. I think so. It's also, think, all right, okay, here we go. It's like, sort of like doing Mrs. America, for instance. Such a big cast and a big crew. And
Huge.
and the first time I'd worked with Kate as well.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure how to work with her, sort of, so to speak. I've heard nothing but great reports about her. So, I knew, but, you can have great reports, but I could do a lousy job and she could get upset too. You know what I mean? So, I was like.
So you just have to find your footing, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. But it's like with most things in life, once you sort of get there, once you figure it all out, then it's pretty much easier.
Just go with
it's much easier. Yeah, exactly.
Find your mojo. The Great Gatsby is incredible, and I think most hairstylists in the world will refer to it at least once in their life as being like, wow, I wish I could have worked on that.
It was a great show to work on. We had a sort of 6 weeks prep, which is unheard of.
Yeah, that's lucky.
Well, it was a big job and those big scenes, and Baz wanted it all polished and things like this. So we had workshops for people that weren't used to putting the wigs on.
See, having that time is that prep time to be able to do that. Yeah, that's lucky.
And I must have single-handedly cut 200 wigs for that.
Oh my God.
And, but I enjoyed that. You sat there with your little block, and there were I'm talking little cheap wigs for background, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I sat there with my little razor, chopping those little things up. It was so funny because everyone assumes everybody had a bob in the 20s, which they didn't. And I was reading the correct way to do finger waves in the Book of Rules of Hairdressing is to razor the hair. So you eliminate the weight and you have ends that are easier to mold, which absolutely makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. Because you try to do a finger wave on a bob.
Yeah.
And you finish up with a lump at the bottom.
Yeah.
And to razor them out.
Just have those tapered ends.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And it looks much more believable. So, and I was sort of like saying, right, this is how I'm going to do it. We decided with Catherine Martin, CM, the costume designer, that all the hair should look like they're wearing bathing caps, basically.
Wow.
Little tight little things. Then we had to figure out a way of, obviously there were girls with hair down to their backside practically, coming in as extras and background, how to figure out a way to make that look short or get it under a wig. So those are the things we figured out. And it was great. What we devised this look, I'd finger wave the front on the very long hair and leave it to ear level.
Yeah.
Then section it off and take the back into 2 ponytails diagonally across the back, and then put them in little latex elastics, and then wet the hair and pin curl all that so it looks short in little pin curls with grips underneath. And then wave the other hair over the top and hide it in, so it all looked like they had bob length hair.
That's great.
But it was sort of, it took a while, but we sort of got there in the end. But on big days on set, we had about 40 hairdressers.
Oh my goodness.
We had one soundstage was just for hair and makeup with mirrors, for some of those big party scenes.
And then I remember you saying something about, because for people's turnaround and stuff like that, you were having another team of people come in to...
a group of girls and guys from the Sydney Opera come in and dress the wigs for us. Everybody is numbered and allocated, and we had a portable wig wardrobes basically that were on wheels. Yeah. So everyone was numbered. So extra number 3 would have wig number, say 3, 6, 8, or 9 or whatever. Like so their wigs, so they wouldn't be stuck on the wrong person on the wrong day, whatever. Yeah. And it was but Leslie Vanderveld sort of orchestrated most of that for us, and she's fantastic, as we know.
Absolutely. She just got in there and helped organise that situation.
Exactly. I don't think anybody else could have done it. I know I couldn't have,
We could now because you've seen it done.
But I couldn't do it as well.
Oh.
But no, I'm sort of proud of Gatsby.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I mean, working with Baz Luhrmann, come on. Everything he does is pretty beautiful. I mean, exactly. You did Australia too, right?
Yes, I did Australia with him, which was nice. Nice to be home. Nice to see part of Australia that I'd never seen before as well.
Yeah, where was that shot?
Most of the interiors were done on stage. in Sydney at Fox Studios, but all the outback was up in the Kimberleys, up in the northwest, and the Northern Territory,
beautiful.
up in Darwin.
Nice. I haven't been up that way.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely beautiful. It's like going to another planet. It's quite spectacular.
Yeah. Australia is another planet, though, isn't it,
Yeah.
Kerry?
No need to be rude. No need to be rude.
I'm not. It's fascinating. It's just all the animals and the insects and the
Well, you
landscape.
can talk. New Zealand's just as bad.
What do you mean? Okay, I'll stop. Just so everybody knows, I'm married to an Australian, so it's okay.
Oh, okay, you're allowed to say it. You can get away with it.
Exactly. Okay. And then I just finally wanted to ask you, is there anyone that you would like to hear interviewed on the Last Looks podcast?
I think, Leslie Vanderveld.
Yeah, I think so too.
You know?
Yeah.
She's a talent on its own and a force on her own, I think.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kerry. You have been a true delight.
Oh, thank you so much, Jamie Lee. There's no need to be polite to me now. It's all over.
Why start now? Thank you.
Right, thank you so much. And I hope it's informative, and hairdressers, get out there and do it and have fun. We're in a great, great business, and it's fantastic. And it's endless. And I'm still learning to this day, and hopefully I've learned something today.
That's awesome. Okay, Last Looks crew, thanks for listening. And remember, if you love it, share it. A quick scroll down and you'll find our show notes. Or maybe you'd like to give your support and leave a 5-star review. Go on, I know you want to. Search the Last Looks podcast on Instagram, Facebook or TikTok, whichever one tickles your fancy. And a massive shout out to the husband, Brett Stanley. Without his patience and tech support, this whole podcast situation simply does not happen. And cheers to Liliana Rose for her fabulous voice acting talents. Okay, Last Looks crew, that's a wrap for me. I don't need to be told twice to get out of here, so bye. I'll catch you on the flip side.
That's a wrap.